Good morning, good morning, and welcome to Upfront with John Baptiste on AM 970 WSTX. By the way, this John Baptiste is also the one known as Bapple. And I do have a program on Friday evenings from 7 to 8:30, hosted by myself and some capable individuals, mostly on the younger side, and it's called Choices. So I want to remind you that we do have choices on Friday evenings from 7 to 8:30. And then on Monday mornings, we have Upfront with John Baptiste, also known as Babu, from 10 till 12. Now, it all happens here on WSTX radio station, 970 on your radio dial. And of course, we're streaming live on Facebook as well. I want to pause, as I often do, not always, but I often do take a pause from the regular, hum and driven everyday activity to acknowledge the existence, as far as I'm concerned, of a Creator Most High, the Source. I have come to a personal determination that there are many higher beings who interact with us on planet Earth, but there is a supreme one in the midst of them. I've come to make a personal determination that there is a council of higher beings, a galactic federation, as some put it, and they often consult and confer relative to Earth and the inhabitants on Earth. And I've also made determinations, personal determinations, in terms of who we are and where we are heading, as far as this journey on Earth is concerned. And so, having made such determinations, I reverence the Supreme Being, the Supreme Source, if I may. And whilst I understand that there is a part of the Source in me, there is a spark of divinity in me, I am not the absolute divine. I am not in absolute control. There are higher powers, and there is a supreme higher power. And so I acknowledge such presences, and I give obeisance unto such presences, and I try to offer worship in spirit and in truth, and to reverence as much as possible the Creator Most High. I also have made some determinations in terms of sacred writings. I do not think that the Bible is the only source of sacred writings, because when we take a look at the teachings of Messiah Yeshua, we see a lot of that being reflected in other works, other writings that we have from places such as Egypt and India. And so I know that there are other sources of sacred writings, but I hold the Holy Bible on a level of preeminence, if I may, when it comes to sacred teachings, sacred writings. And so I try to be guided by the teachings of the Holy Bible as much as possible. It's not always easy. It's not always easy. I am not perfect. I try to do things in a manner which is, how should I put it, socially, culturally acceptable. Not always easy to do so. I have tried as a child growing up to honor my parents. Did I always honor and obey my parents according to the dictates of the Bible? No, I did not. There were times when I was a little rebellious. There were many times when I disagreed with positions taken by my parents. I recall one occasion when I was already grown and working, a working adult, but I visited the island of St. Lucia where I was born, and I was in my parents' home. We were at the breakfast table, absent my father who was in his bedroom. But as we discussed certain things, I made a statement to the effect that, I think there were times when my father attempted correction or did carry out correction using the rod of iron, if I may use that expression, using the whip. And I made the statement to the effect that, I think that, he beat me without legitimacy. There was no legitimate reason for so doing. I think he needed to repent of such actions taken. And of course, my father, overhearing the conversation, came out into the dining area and asked me to take back the statement which I had made. And of course, I was about 23, 24 at the time. And I was in his house visiting. He asked me to take back the statement, and I took back the statement. Very obediently and politely, I took back the statement. But I remained resolute in my heart that I was right. That there were times when he should not have used the belt, the whip, to correct me, and he did. And he'd used that without any kind of accompanying words of admonition to tell me, well, listen, this is what you should have done, etc. And hence the reason why I am using the whip. He didn't go into such, specifics, if I may. And so I took exception to that. Nevertheless, I still respect my parents, although they're deceased. I hold them in my memory, and I think they contributed immensely to my development, my well-being, and who I am today. So I thank the Creator for having given me such wonderful parents, notwithstanding the flaws that I might have seen in them. I too have my flaws. And so, folks, as I continue on this journey and I look at people, I meet people, I try to see if I can see a godly spark in persons that I encounter, elements of divinity. And it is funny that there is a gray line between what is right and what is wrong. Many will disagree with me for saying that, but let me tell you the reason why I say that. And first of all, I think every one of us we all have a spark of divinity in us. We are created in the image and likeness of the Creator Most High. Here is where the rubber meets the road, if I may put it that way. When I look at this life, it takes illness, it takes sickness, it takes physical, how should I put it, physical irregularities for us to appreciate the brilliance of physicians. If nobody got sick, there would have been no need for physicians. If people didn't have abnormalities, situations in the body that cause for the expert, finely tuned intervention of surgeons, then we would not have been able to praise surgeons for, carrying out heart transplants and brain surgeries to remove tumors, etc., and all the wonderful things that physicians do for us. If everybody was well and in perfect health, what would become of our physicians? If we didn't have people who get involved in criminal behavior, then what will become of our law enforcement personnel? And there is how should I put it? There is a social theory about how men came to the point where, in having to deal with the bullying mentality, that a corporate setup came into existence whereby society can control the bully that can go out of control and just wreak havoc in a community. There is a social theory that deals with that, and which, of course, I subscribe to it. But I make this point to show us the importance of having certain individuals operating in varied capacities here on Earth. If we didn't have engineers, electrical, mechanical, and otherwise, um, what would become of pressing infrastructure needs and problems that we have to contend with? And it takes those individuals sometimes to come with a moment of brilliance where they can tell us, well, here is the solution to the problem. If we didn't have minds to be molded, to be inculcated with sound doctrine, teachings, information, what would become of our teachers, our professors, and those persons? And similarly, if we didn't have a need to provide for newborn babies, what would become of parents? So here you have a matrix that has all these diverse and sometimes opposing elements that bring into focus, sharp focus duality, the duality of life on this planet. That we have life and death, night and day, big and small, tall and short, and all of this. That's the reality, folks. And then we also have good and bad. And so as we navigate the matrix, we have to determine what elements we're going to give our focus and energy to, what elements we're going to cultivate, and the ones we're going to try and subdue and hold in check. Very critical. And so that's where we are. That's my take on the experiences here in this, what we call a matrix. Some may agree with me and some may disagree with me. And so I use this as a takeoff point to sort of like segue into some observations that I've made recently. Must have been about 2 weeks ago. I spoke about our education system. I spoke about a Senate committee meeting that was held where a senator suggested that SNAP benefits and other benefits coming from social programs should be taken away from parents who do not, in his observation, cut the mustard to make sure that the children attend school regularly. He also suggested that parents should be charged with parental neglect, never mentioning to us what mitigating factors may come into play. I also saw another situation where a senator intimated that a suggestion is being made that teachers should be like entertainers to attract children to be in school. And the senator said that's a sad commentary that this is where we've come to as far as education is concerned. Folks, I have in the past, in public forums, when addressing the housing shortages in this community, I've spoken about areas such as Williams Elite, where we have a number of homes boarded up, notwithstanding what some have preferred to us that, work is being done in that area. I even went as far as mentioning on several occasions where we could take the Elena Christian Junior High School on St. Croix, which is abandoned in the area of Princess. And that building can be retrofitted, renovated, undermined where that needs to be done, and then have it repurposed to meet certain or to address certain needs in the community, from the standpoint of housing, from the standpoint of economic development, etc. All of this seem to have fallen on deaf ears, and there is a reason why I'm going back to touch upon these things this morning. This morning, I picked up the Daily News, and as I read the editorial, some of the very things I've been talking about in the not too distant past, and have continued up to even now. These things are mentioned in an editorial. And it seemed to echo the very things that I've been saying. And I'm saying, are we so short-sighted, lacking in understanding and appreciation that we don't recognize these things? Before I read a couple of excerpts from the newspaper, I want to drop one other thing. And I'd like to hear responses from individuals out there listening to me during this program. I'd like to hear what's your take on these matters. You know, it seems that leadership is lacking across the spectrum, not just here in the Virgin Islands, but in all of the islands of the Caribbean. We just don't have the kind of strong leadership we used to see in the past. I have said in this program that I respect the office of the President of the United States of America. That doesn't mean that I have to agree with everything that the President says or does, but I'm not going to disrespect the office. The same holds true for the position held by elected officials here in the territory. And so a number of things have transpired here in the territory that have forced me to look at people in the territory, how we deal with each other, how we treat each other, where we've failed, and there is just so much I want to download. Before I go there, let me just share with you this thing in the papers, because there is just so much I want to share. Just so much, folks, in terms of where we don't get it. And I'm getting a little roiled up as I mention these things. I want to go to the newspaper. I want to say all the other things that I want to say. I don't even know where to take off. But before I go to the papers, let me just drop this one out of nugget. I run into a retiree, government retiree. And he mentioned to me that with the rum companies here in the territory, we are only receiving $4 million annually, folks. That's what this government retiree told me, that we're only getting $4 million. And I told him, man, this is absolutely crazy. I don't know where you got this information from. But I'm going to do some research. I'm going to compile some data, and I'm going to share with you so you can understand where we're at. And for government retirees here in the Virgin Islands, that number approximately 7,000 between them and their dependents. I don't know how they don't know the facts. Even now we have people running for elected office saying that how they worked towards securing the rum cover over revenues for this territory, which is not exactly accurate. That's something we've had going way back. I forget the exact year when this came into being, through laws enacted by the federal government. But we've had this for the longest while, where you produce rum here. As a matter of fact, it's not even being enforced as it should be, but we produce rum here, it's exported to the mainland, and excise taxes are collected from that. The excise taxes collected are returned to our treasury, hence the reason why it's called covered over, or cover over rum revenues. We were at a point, folks, when we were being told that the government employees' retirement system was about to go belly up. In fact, when the Diageo deal came around, the recitals in there said that those new revenues would be used to shore up the system. Retirees of this government were in a position where they were unsure as to whether their pension benefits would keep coming. And so we got Diageo here in the territory. We gave them certain benefits. Some stuff was already statutorily established. Cruise and Rum was receiving that. And on top of that, we gave them some more. The Senate later on turned around and equalized the playing field so that Cruise was getting the same thing that Diageo had been given. No analysis has been conducted to see what our economic situation was like with one rum company producing and exporting here on the island as to what it is today with two companies in operation. What are the needs that they're assisting us in meeting? If my memory serves me right, just looking at, the Community Facilities Trust Fund established when Diageo came here. At a minimum, approximately $5 million going to that annually. Just to the Community Facilities Trust Fund, at a minimum, about $5 million going to that. Nobody tells us what happens to the money. And for a government employee, retiree, to tell me that we're only getting $4 million annually from the rum companies, man, we need to explain some things to our people so they get the picture. Had it not been for the rum companies, the retirement system might have long gone under, gone belly up. But folks were able to use those monies as a guarantee to float bonds to give the retirement system a boost. And so we've continued, those of us who are retired, we've continued receiving our pensions. And we act as though we don't know these things, we don't care. You know how many retirees of this government reside on the mainland and they're getting their pensions to pursue their retirement goals and dreams while living on the mainland and in other parts of the Caribbean and the world, if I may. And we tend to downplay the benefits of rum cover over revenues coming to this territory. Give me a break, folks. I digressed a bit because, like I said, there is so much I want to unpack this morning. I've been an activist for quite some time. I'm unafraid. I do my best to tell the truth and tell it like it is. But I'm saying, man, what kind of system we have? How do we operate in this place to allow lies to run amok? And we just buy everything lock, stock, and barrel. Anyway, here is what I wanted to say, to read from this here. And I digressed a bit. On truancy. Whilst I mentioned that, the suggestions I've made in terms of, teachers, school personnel, understanding the times we're living in, and utilizing resources so as to keep our children engaged in school, to create an atmosphere in school where students don't want to miss a day in school. I had that in one of my campaign brochures. Nobody pays attention. I don't know why. Thank God. Thank God I'm encouraged by the experiences of Yeshua HaMashiach. Despised and rejected. A man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. But anyway, here is this here. This comes from a writer submitting to the Daily News. And on truancy, here is what he says. We must change the way we teach. Interactive learning is now the norm. We should adapt our methods to keep students genuinely engaged. We need to move away from outdated, lecture-heavy approaches that feel like relics of the 1950s. We also have to confront a critical question. How will education manage the rapid proliferation of AI? At present, many students feel they gain more practical life skills from YouTube than from traditional schooling. That should be a wake-up call. It's coming, that's in the Daily News. Guest editorial. And then on the issue of housing, like I mentioned, my recommendations to have joint public-private partnerships to renovate, retrofit Elena Christian Junior High School abandoned in Princess and to repurpose that building. And I indicated that can be done with so many abandoned, dilapidated buildings we have across the length and breadth of St. Croix in particular. And it's like I have said this over the years and nobody pays attention. But I'm glad that this brother is now touching upon this. And this brother always has some wonderful articles, guest editorials that he puts in the local newspaper. The head is here on housing. And I want to read in pertinent part. Across the territory, we have historic buildings and bungalows needing restoration and are an important part of our town's character. These should be refurbished, maintaining their original facades. With the national and global trends toward building and using tiny houses, it makes sense to revitalize these structures as homes for young people, as small families, preserving the character of our historic towns, while allowing islanders to repurpose derelict buildings into income-generating properties and addressing the housing shortage. Yes, the government should encourage and provide funding, or at least funding guarantees for the reconstruction of properties in the territory. I added this piece. Folks, you see why I am kind of riled up this morning? When I look at what's being said by people in positions of authority vis-a-vis what is being said by persons like myself and others who are activists, others who are concerned about our community and wanting to see our community go forward. We can do better. And we should do better. Like I told the retiree I spoke with, I'm going to compile the data, the information, because everybody's talking about it as though, well, oh, we've now secured permanent rum cover overfunding. What is the annual amount of money we're getting from these sources? Gross as well as net, after we've given what we're given as incentives to the rum companies. And by the way, the Puerto Rico government is giving the same, what we're giving to these companies here, the government of Puerto Rico gives it to their rum companies over there. And since that they've had one new company added to their, how should I put, their portfolio of rum companies they've got over there. And so folks, we need to be truthful. We need to examine the horns and see if the bull is fake or if it's genuine. We need to stop being disingenuous as some of us are, because some of us know better, but we refuse to do better. I am not afraid. As long as I have facts and information to back up what I'm saying, I'm going to speak boldly. Many will not like me, and I'm going to get into that. Why some don't like me, some don't care to like me. Who loves the truth? Only honest, genuine persons love the truth. Other people, they love a lie. And there is a saying about the naked truth as opposed to the lie. We'll get into that some other time. Before I continue, for those who would like to share with us, if you're viewing this, you're listening, and the numbers to reach us are 773-0490 and 773-0390. Of course, the area code is 340. lot of stuff been happening lately. I'm a little taken aback by leaders, not just here at home in the Virgin Islands, but throughout the Caribbean region. We've got a couple of them who really stand up and present us with the truth and speak on behalf of their people. We've got a bunch of cowardly leaders. We've got a bunch of cowardly leaders. They refuse to step up to the front lines and to be heard, proclaiming what is true, proclaiming what our people ought to know and understand, what our people ought to be cognizant of. I live in the Virgin Islands. I'm a naturalized US citizen. I was born on the island of St. Lucia. I've given most of my life, my adult life in particular, to the Virgin Islands of the United States of America. The majority of persons who live here are of African descent. This is an 84 square mile island, St. Croix in particular. I'm not talking about St. Thomas, St. John, and Water Island, but St. Croix in particular, about 84 square miles. We have more churches than square mileage on this island. Hello, Paula. Good morning and welcome.
Yes, I would like to ask a question.
Go ahead. Ask your question. If I can answer it, I will.
I would like for you to tell me 2 things you plan to do for our senior citizens.
I have been doing for senior citizens. I have a lot I can do for senior citizens. You make me feel almost as though I'm a candidate running for office, and I have not declared that I'm running for office, but nonetheless, I have been an activist. Let me just say to you that when I visit the mainland, I see all kinds of programs that they've got in place, whether it is at residential facilities for seniors. They've got all kinds of programs to encourage healthy lifestyles, to provide for exercise and relaxation that we don't have here in the territory. In other words, I'm saying to you that when you go to certain residential facilities for seniors on the mainland, they've got every amenity provided for them at those facilities. They don't even have to travel to another jurisdiction for exercise, for entertainment, for even in terms of health checkups, etc. They're getting all of these things readily available in their residences where they're at. And I think we should have such facilities and amenities for our seniors here in the territory. On top of that, if I may say to you and those listening, when I served in the legislature, I was concerned about seniors who got to a point where they didn't have the requisite income so as to keep their homes when they're faced with property taxes, etc. And I moved legislation at that time, which became law, that no senior citizen of 60 and above should lose their residence simply because of inability to pay property taxes. That became law. So it's not just only now that I'm looking out for that. In addition to that, healthcare on this island, my brother, I already have a package that shows you exactly how you take a medium-sized hospital, bring it up to speed, take care of the inadequacies in terms of supplies, personnel, etc., and to provide state-of-the-art quality healthcare for residents. We need that here on this island. Our seniors today Many of them have to travel to the mainland for hospital services. That ought not to be the case. We can take care of that situation. We can build trust and confidence in our hospital and let seniors understand that they can go right there to Wang Louis Hospital and the Roy Schneider facility in St. Thomas to get the services that they need. They don't have to travel from here to the mainland where they're going through all kinds of treatments and sometimes they're dying in the absence of supporting family members. We need to stop that. I want our seniors to know that, whatever health related services they need, they can find this right here at home. I don't even want to go into those who are receiving, whether they have insurance with the government system, and all of these monies are being exported. The proceeds from insurance payments are being exported to other jurisdictions and not being given to us here in the territory. So these are some areas where I would like to take some action to address the concerns of seniors. And also transportation is another major area impacted.
I was just going to bring that to your attention. What about transportation and the senior centers?
Mm-hmm.
Because, seniors are lonely people.
Right.
And when they go to the center, they come alive.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Yes.
So we need to have that transportation, taking them to the center.
Mm-hmm.
We also have to make sure the center is available with all the amenities that you mentioned.
Yeah.
And to make sure that our seniors, all of us, are going to become seniors.
Absolutely.
All of us.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want us in the Virgin Islands to look out for our seniors.
Mm-hmm.
They paved the way for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's now for us to take care of them and still take care of all the needs. So when we become seniors, it's already there. We don't have to worry about it.
I am in absolute agreement with you. Like I was saying earlier on, a number of things I have suggested in the past. I don't know why, for some reason, the traction wasn't there. But I'll be honest with you, since you've called me and you've asked me this question. I have been meeting with some persons. We are reviewing some steps made, some steps that weren't taken that should have been taken. And so we're just about getting to a point of determination where I will be making a statement in short order in the near future. But we've been looking at stuff. We're concerned about what's happening here in this territory, the needs that are not being met, and how we can begin to address that. I just saw recently where I think it's Indonesia, there was an experiment carried out with road striping where they were using what is called luminescent colors. It turned out to be very expensive, so they sort of had to abandon that. But it's out of a concern that senior drivers who have difficulty navigating the roadways that aren't properly striped, and they wanted to address that, so they moved in that direction. Here in the Virgin Islands, my brother, there are a number of intersections you get to. There is no proper markings or striping on the roads. You don't even know where to stop to make a left turn, to go straight ahead, or to turn right. You're guided by the traffic lights yet, but in terms of the markings, the striping on the roads, it's missing. Areas where you're driving and you don't know if you're about to fall off the edge of the road because you don't have the white stripes to show you exactly where you are. It's just crazy how we don't care about our people. We don't provide for them services to make them feel safe, secure, and comfortable as they maneuver the roadways and get around this community. Many seniors have told me that they don't go out at night simply because of the road conditions here in the territory. Sad, but true. Hello? All right. Of course, the caller. I want to thank you, caller, for calling and sharing with us. You sort of put me on the spot, but boy, the Bible says that we should always be prepared to give an answer when we're questioned. I remember in the Bible there is a story of, what's the prophet's name, man? Well, Ezra. The prophet Ezra, who had prepared himself, made himself well versed and knowledgeable in the area of Jewish law, if I may, so that he was prepared when he went before the king to ask for permission, to ask for support, to go back to rebuild Jerusalem and the temple in Jerusalem. And so he had prepared himself in that area. But I want to thank the caller for at least putting me on the spot and allowing me to answer the question and to demonstrate that I am prepared, not just to address the needs of the children of the territory, those attending school that I have spoken about, what challenges they're faced with, and how best we can handle those challenges, but also the seniors. And when I speak of the children and the seniors, that is not to the exclusion of the rest. Service to our community should be broad based. No one excluded, no one left behind. But I think because of the status and the challenges of the younger ones and the older ones, we ought to pay serious attention to those two groups and make them a priority. And that's where I stand with that. I was about going into something a little broader than where I started off this morning when the caller called in. And I began speaking about how I have respect for the office of the president. And I spoke about the lack of leadership in the Caribbean area. And I want to share this with you. Like I said, majority of us here on this island of St. Croix, majority of us in the Virgin Islands, we are of African descent. And yet, folks, we don't love each other as we ought to. There is a difference between liking people and loving people. I'm not asking to be liked, but I would like to be loved. I don't necessarily like everybody, but I would hope that I love everyone. I certainly don't like and appreciate the behavior of criminals, but I don't hate criminals. I don't hate the people. I dislike and disapprove of their behavior, but I love people. And so I would hope that we can develop that spirit, that attitude to love one another and to show compassion and consideration as we deal with each other. Well, here is the reason why I'm going there, folks. There is no disputing the fact that Africans came first. Africa is the place where it all began with humanity. But Africans have found themselves in a situation today where they're not exactly united and they're not exactly loved by the rest of the groups here on planet Earth. And so even amongst themselves, they're divided. They don't exactly love each other. I want to show you how Africans have been first. I'm not even going back to Egypt. I'm not going back to Kemet to prove that. I'm not even going to touch upon the countries like Mali and others that have made great contributions. I want to deal specifically with Christianity and Africans. I want to deal specifically with Christianity and Africans because by and large, we are people of Judeo-Christian beliefs. That's why when I started off, I spoke about the number of churches we have on the island of St. Croix, which is only 84 square miles. So I want to show you something here. You know, in the Bible, there is a lot that was said about Ethiopians and others who were rejected. The so-called aliens in the Bible, the strangers. At one time, they were not included into the fold of Hebrews, Israelites. But in Isaiah chapter 56, there is a how should I put it? A message that goes out to the strangers that have not been welcomed, to the eunuchs that were not given a place in the Hebrew congregation. But in Isaiah chapter 56, they're being told, come on, come into the holy mountain, come into the house of the Lord, the Creator. Be welcomed as long as you hold on to the teachings that come from the Lord. That was predated by what statements made in the book of Genesis and the book of Deuteronomy about Africans coming into the fold. And I think we're missing a bit of history there to show that the movement actually began with Africans. Africans lost track of the movement at some point in time. And I know many will disagree with me. Where is he coming from with that? But I think the true history will validate what I'm saying. But anyway, we come to the point of history, of Christianity. And those of you who have read the Bible, I think it's in Acts chapter 2, when the apostles, after having been gathered in that upper room, and the Holy Ghost appearance took place, where following that they came out speaking boldly. And as they're speaking boldly in the streets of Jerusalem, you have all kinds of people in there, folks from all different walks of life, from different parts of the world, speaking different languages. And every man understood what the Apostle Peter was saying, and the rest of them. They all understood. Those guys were speaking in tongues. But as they spoke in tongues, all the people from different nations who were gathered there understood what they were saying. This is powerful in many ways. It shows you the power of Holy Spirit anointing, one. And it reveals to us that even then we had that kind of cosmopolitan setup where you had people from different nations, different places residing together in Jerusalem. And so it happens that you have an Ethiopian eunuch. And I just mentioned that eunuchs at one time were rejected, but the Bible had indicated where they would be embraced, just like strangers. But anyway, you have that eunuch who is going back. He has gone into Jerusalem to worship. He's one who keeps the Sabbath. He's heading back to Ethiopia, where he was employed. He was employed by Candace, Ethiopian queen, powerful woman. And so on his way back to Ethiopia, he's reading from the scriptures. He's reading specifically from the book of Isaiah, Isaiah chapter 53. And whilst he's reading, Philip gets a message from the Holy Ghost to go that way into the area where you're traveling from Israel or Jerusalem, going towards Gaza. Gaza is where they have this big conflict right now between the Jews and the Palestinians. But that desert strip, that desert road, the Holy Spirit tells Philip, go that way. You'll find a man whom you need to converse with. And so Philip goes and he pulls up next to the eunuch's carriage. And the eunuch is reading from the book of Isaiah. Reading about a man despised and rejected, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. You know, speaking about a suffering Messiah, he's reading about him. And so Philip comes up to him and Philip says to him, do you understand what you're reading, sir? And the eunuch says, how can I understand unless somebody explains it all to me? And so Philip explains to the eunuch that this passage you're reading here, my brother, speaks about the Messiah Yeshua. How he would come, he would suffer, bruised for our iniquities, chastised, taken to the cross, crucified, all of this for our redemption. And so the eunuch believes what Philip preaches to him. He accepts to be baptized, and they come across a body of water. And he says to Philip, well, here is water. What prevents me from being baptized? And so Philip said, we can get along, you can get baptized. And so he steps down from his chariot, goes into the water where Philip baptizes him. Well, folks, that was the seed that germinated, grew up to become the powerful Christian church in Ethiopia. They don't tell us that long before you had established churches in all kinds of diverse places, we had this right there in Africa. And the Ethiopian church today, I understand, is in many ways different from the other churches that we have around, even in terms of the Bible that they have. The Ethiopian Bible has information that our Bibles that we have around do not contain. But it's important to zero in on the point where the eunuch says, how can I understand what I'm reading unless someone explains that to me? And this is significant and important to us, folks. Reason why? Those of you who have a Bible, go to Deuteronomy chapter 28. Read Deuteronomy chapter 28, and it speaks of a people who, if they did not keep the teachings given to them by the Most High, would find themselves being carried away on ships into slavery. The one thing is that it says that they would be taken into Egypt. But I think Egypt here simply gives us the understanding of what slavery meant at a prior point in time when the Hebrews became slaves in Egypt. The Hebrews became slaves to the Egyptians. And those Hebrews again, because of disobedience, were placed on ships, foretold by the Bible that it would happen, and be taken away to serve another people as slaves in Egypt. I submit to you, I submit to all of us this morning that those persons those Hebrews were our ancestors who were taken out of Africa, brought on the slave ships across the Atlantic to become slaves to a people in the New World, stretching from North America all the way down to South America and the Caribbean area. Many of us will read it. But as the eunuch said, how can I understand what I'm reading unless somebody explains to me? Many of us read that in Deuteronomy chapter 28. We gloss over it, and it stays there. And I'm sharing with you this morning that that is the reality. And we need to revisit that reality. Good morning, good morning to you. Welcome to the program.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Baptiste.
Good morning to you. How are you doing, my brother? How are you doing this morning?
I'm good. I was listening.
Yeah.
I was listening.
All righty. Well, thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Share with us.
You said that the Hebrews was in Egypt, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Bible tells me that the Hebrews went out of Egypt,
Mm-hmm.
they moved from the God carried them across the Red Sea
Mm-hmm.
into wherever they went.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now, when the Hebrews, as you put it, the same Hebrews that you talk about that went across the Red Sea, they went east, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the Hebrews you're talking about now, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Then is the same Hebrews that come on the slave ship.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how could they move from Egypt to east of Africa? according to the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the same Hebrews that come across and the slave ship.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying. Let me just first of all say that, people have always migrated, and migration takes several routes, especially when people are persecuted and afflicted. They will find all kinds of different ways and means of moving from one location to another. So we may not have all the details in terms of how this journey went, but my personal take is that somehow the original Hebrews ended up being in West Africa to a large extent. And so yes, they were spread across because different tribes, even if you even listen.
But now, Mr. Baptiste, you know why I don't accept that by the teaching about the Hebrews going to across the Red Sea? I don't accept that. You know what I learned in my I looking and reading and trying to understand things. This thing about Hebrews moving from Egypt over to wherever
the promised land.
Yeah, well, I don't believe that. I believe that Hebrew people, instead of going east, they went down into Africa.
Okay.
You understand?
And I don't disagree with your take on that, because I know there is a case of stolen legacies and people who have bent the story to fit their narrative and not the narrative.
Because what I learned is that first of all, I don't really believe much on the Bible for what it's telling me. I don't take it literally.
Okay.
You understand?
I understand that.
I don't take it literally because first of all, the same Hebrews that they're talking about came from they came from the same places that they went to. That's what they tell me. They came from the what do you call it? What kind of land is it? The promised land.
They came from coming out
and
of
then went into Egypt.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they came from Palestine when Jacob went.
Okay, now good. Right? They came from Palestine and went into Egypt. Right? How did they get to Egypt? Then God had to the Red Sea. They had to cross the Red Sea. They crossed it twice.
I understand that there is another route that could have been taken where the Red Sea didn't have to be crossed. A much shorter route than all that journey through the desert.
Okay, now. Okay. God had to bring them across the Red Sea. Now, why did they have to build the Suez Canal? Tell me. Don't laugh. And this thing I don't think most Mr. Baptiste, when it comes to the Bible, they had to build the Suez Canal because of why?
Basically, it was to facilitate transportation of goods.
Transportation of goods. Okay, now, if you have to build a canal to facilitate the transportation of goods, that means that they had a path to go across to Israel and all that kind of thing, right? So I can't accept this thing about God making a path to the Red Sea. I can't say that. You understand? I can't say that. Because we had a path all the time. Because they came over before, according to the Bible. That's where they come from, and they went back to the promised land, right? They went back. That means they've been there before, and they're coming to Egypt, right? Contradiction with that.
Yeah, let me ask you something. When you read the history of the Virgin Islands as written by several scholars, don't we run across some differences in terms of what is being presented and the facts being given to us? It's not all. As a matter of fact, I just heard on Brother Mario's program some time ago.
I asked you a question too. I saw you hear me. I know what you're talking about.
Okay. So
I know what you're talking about.
All right. So
with a tumble. Did you that's the part you're talking about?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Yes.
Okay, there you go. I asked the question because how could in that instance how could old people get explosive? How could they get that? Where they get from? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. So this
people are writing to suit them.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, people are writing to suit them, and that's why I think that this Bible that we are always profoundly talk about and profess that is so right and all kind of thing. People write that. People take things from excerpts from all over the place and write what they want and leave out what they want. You understand? Because the Ethiopian Bible way different to what is this Bible talking about. You know?
True.
And when I used to go to school, I had the Maccabees version of the Bible. Way different too. Way different. I studied the Bible from the time I was a small child. Coming up 12 years of school, I studied the Bible. And that's why you see, I as a person right now, I don't accept the Bible literally. Yes, I don't accept it because one part going tell you one thing and then another part going tell you something way different than the part that you just read. So I don't take it literally. Period.
I understand where you're coming from. I agree with you to a large extent. I do not take the Bible from a literal point of view, but I think there are lots of nuggets in the Bible from which we can benefit and on our steps as we navigate this journey here on planet Earth. That's why I said earlier when I started off, I did mention that, I don't think the Bible is the only sacred book that we have. There are sacred writings.
No, I don't think so either.
Okay, so
I don't think so either. Because what Christianity that teach we is way different to what Buddhists that teach their people. Way different to what people from India that teach their people. You understand? And I, in my searching, I have read all kind of thing about Buddhism. I read about Minister Lewis Farrakhan. I studied all them things when I was in school, and I come to the conclusion that what they're teaching we in the Bible ain't necessarily true. You understand? That's what I learned. That's why I tell people I am agnostic, because I don't believe that one teaching is way right than others. You understand? That's what I come to. I am agnostic. I don't believe that one is right over the other.
Let me share this with you and those who are listening. When I grew up as a child, when I was attending secondary school, I was told that the black race, and that was being told to me by people like myself, black folks. I was told that the black race is cursed, and it goes back, and it goes. Okay, and I was told that Ham was cursed by his father Noah, and that's where we came from. Now I came to find out later on that there was a child birth situation where a child was born, well, twins, but one of them came out to be, one came out to be red and hairy. And as I read this thing, I said, this red and hairy, that has to be like on the whiter shade, the albino type. And then as I learned, as time went by, I came to find out that, we don't know of any situation where two white people produced a black child, but we know of cases where black people have produced white babies. As a matter of fact, I have a friend of mine, he's deceased now, but he has two children who are both albinos, So I came to realize that, blacks were first. And I think I heard Mr. Farrakhan telling somebody, either he or Muhammad Ali, who said that we can produce you. Two of us can produce you.
black is dominant and white is recessive.
Exactly. So, okay, so we have to have a spirit of discernment as we read these things to find out for ourselves that, it's not exactly as it is being presented, but it's distorted, bent to reflect somebody's wishes and narrative.
Yeah, that the Bible was written by European people. This Bible that we so embrace.
Well, it was put together by them. They took the writings. Yeah. They compiled it.
And do you know one of the reasons why I don't just leave the Bible alone? Because I learned that in what year it was? 1493.
Okay,
You know about the Papal Bull?
Yeah, when Christopher Columbus sailed to these parts and discovered lands, and they wanted to claim lands, and they needed authority from the Pope. Yeah.
The Pope gave authority to nations, not just Christopher Columbus.
Yeah.
Nations to do what?
To go into Africa and take us and make slaves and servants out of us, and under the pretext that we were souls to be saved. And and that and that they went out there and claiming to discover lands and discover people, and they took claim of ownership of these lands and the people under authority given to them by the Pope.
And the came with what? The came with what? What did they come with? First of all,
what they came with weapons.
No. According to what I learned, they came with religion.
Oh yes. That was a tool.
And then after they came with weapons. You understand?
Yeah.
I learned all of that.
Yeah. Listen up, my brother. Listen, there is a Bible called the Slave Bible.
I know about that too.
Okay, well.
Yeah, I know about that too. I who write it? We write it, The European people write that.
Exactly.
Yeah, European people write that.
Yeah.
So, like I tell you, I am agnostic. You can't believe everything I read in the Bible. Because I come to find out in my lifetime that certain things that I have learned from a child ain't true. It's not true. I come to find out that for myself. Me trying to tell you what to believe in. I tell you what I believe. You understand? And I will preface whatever I said by what I believe. I ain't telling you to believe what I believe, because I come to the conclusion to come to my belief. You understand?
Let me ask you a question. I have a pair of pants, trousers. My size is waist 32. The length is 30. Somebody comes and steals my pants. And of course it was a khaki pants, but they've now dyed it into a blue color. So I'm going to the neighbor and saying, like, this is my pants. It was stolen. And he's arguing, he's saying, this is a blue pants. It can't be yours. That's my blue pants. And I'm saying to him, this pants, pair of trousers you have there, the original size was 32 waist, 30 length. And it's mine. Somebody has altered the color, but I know it's mine. Now, my neighbor who has stolen the pants, mind you, he's wearing size 34. So, which means that he has difficulty fitting into the one he has stolen, but he still doesn't want to relinquish his position and admit that it is stolen. That's the same like the Bible. Yes, it has been modified, it has been altered, but the basic truth still remains. And if we search diligently, we shall find it.
I search diligently and I come to the conclusion, my own conclusion. Come to the conclusion for Mr. Baptiste, for my son, for whatever. I come to my conclusion, my own perception. Understand? Yeah, that ain't necessarily right and true.
Yeah. There are many things said in the Bible that I don't accept on face value, And even in terms of the teachings of Yeshua, if you look at the teachings of Yeshua, they reflect teachings that we get from Buddhism to a large extent. And you cannot take these things just on surface level. You got to go deep to see what he's trying to bring across. And for those who don't know, the Bible tells us that Yeshua used parables to teach, to bring across a message, a lesson. He used parables. So we should not just take his teachings at face value. You got to dig deep to find out.
Most of we who say we are Christian, we don't embrace the parables. That's the thing about it that I don't understand. You check where they don't embrace the parables and take that for that thing.
Yeah.
It don't necessarily be like that with about.
No, it does not. It does not. It's a teaching tool. It is a teaching tool to teach us, and you got to dig deep. You got to peel back the layers of the onion to find out what's going on. Yep.
And I'm gonna go with this. You know what baffled me? 10 Commandments said thou shalt not kill, right?
Yeah.
Right? One commandment said thou shalt not kill. And then in the next part of the Bible gonna tell you there's a time to kill. You see that conflict?
It does present a conflict of sorts. It's called a paradox. It's called a paradox. Let me just say that the teachings of the Ten Commandments reflect the teachings of Me'at. And
I know that.
Okay.
I know that.
And
how come they put that in the Bible and then they don't say that Jesus said there's a time to kill? You understand what I'm saying?
I hear you, my brother, and I have my personal interpretation of that one. I'll hold it close to my chest for the time being.
Oh, cool. Cool.
Wow. But I love the discourse, and that's how brethren ought to do it, where we can have discourse, and it doesn't mean that we will necessarily agree on all points, but there is, even though we disagree, the brethren's love still remains.
Yeah, I know. I always tell people my point of view. He's telling you to accept what I find out. You understand?
Yep.
You ain't telling nobody to accept nothing. I just tell you my point of view from how I see it.
And I respect it. I respect that.
But preachers are trying to tell you their point of view, and you must embrace their point of view. And how I see it, and I don't let somebody else get it.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for calling and sharing, man. Stay strong. All right. 773-0390, 773-0490. Again, I just want to impress upon all of us, especially those of us who are people of color, that we need to go beyond the lines of demarcation, the things that tend to divide us. And let's look at the madras that bind us together. I began pushing in that direction because I don't like how we were treating each other here in the diaspora. Hello, caller. Good morning and welcome.
Pleasant good morning. A beautiful Monday in paradise.
Good morning to you. I just had a feeling that you were the one on the lane,
When I was listening to the conversation we just had, it's interesting. I agree with certain points. The Bible is not a history book. It has no dates in it. But there's some geographical references that's accurate. The oldest modern civilization is Egypt. Egypt is mentioned in the Bible. So that kind of gives you a time frame, a start out, when those books were written.
Yeah.
But it's obviously were not written by one person, it's different books. And they were all males, right? Any books of the Bible written by females?
We don't have books written by females, but we do have books where females are the protagonists. The Book of Esther.
You can't treat it as factual knowledge. It's spiritual knowledge.
True, but there are some facts contained in the Bible which have been authenticated by archaeological discoveries.
Yes. For example, reproduction. You know it's not possible. A ghost can't impregnate a human being. So, but we have something something like that today because we got surrogate mothers who could carry a baby. And eventually they might be doing uterus transplant because you have some transgender women would like to give birth. They were born biological males, but I believe it's possible once they be able to implant a womb that a biological male might be able to give birth.
Can I?
And then, yeah.
Can I present one small correction in terms of your opening premises? You mentioned that the Bible is not a book of dates, but there are some dates given in the Bible.
They are?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, they may not be all that precise, but for example, at the time of the birth of Yeshua, we are told that that was a time when there was a Roman ruler called Tiberius who had ordered a census to be taken. So if you go back to the time when he ruled, you can place the birth of Yeshua between, say, maybe 4 BC to about 4 AD, plus or minus. So and there are other areas where when you're given the reign of certain people, you can sort of like put a time factor in there. And then the other thing I want to say to you is that let's say, for example, my maternal grandfather came from Africa. We were never given the date when he came to St. Lucia. When he arrived in St. Lucia, we can pretty much tell that he came in as a child slave based on the time when he lived. And then we've been told that his African name that he always referred to was Rakek Zikak Mayambe, but the slave name given to him was Mathrin Jim, or Mathurin Jim.
The Europeans robbed the Africans of their identity.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something else that you have heard two white people produce a black child. I have.
You did?
In South Africa.
Well, give it to us. Give it to us.
Legally classified wife. Man and woman, husband and wife, produce a child. And initially, she was legally classified as white until her features started to change. They were forced to reclassify her as colored, and she was neglected by her biological parents as she gets older. And then I heard a case with two Chinese gave birth to a child with European features and no Asian features. Red hair and blue eyes. And when they went and they did this research, sure enough, one of them had an ancestor that was European. So it's like we're talking about the recessive genes and all of that. Yeah, it could skip a generation. That's why this famous actress, I forget her first name, I think her last name was Carol. She, all her life, she was classified as white. Okay? She was afraid because her mother told her when she was like 16 years old, her mother told her her father is a light-skinned black man. And she kept that secret because because she was famous in Hollywood. And she didn't get married and wouldn't want to have children because she was afraid that child could come out black and then her secret will be out. So it had a lot of people who have passed for white and they could go back and trace have an African ancestor. So I mean, I don't think today you go find, unless you're living in an isolated tribe someplace, most people, when they do the DNA study, you're going to see your mixed ancestry. Like mine, you're not going to be all 100% African, but 100% European. It's a mix. And
but hold on. But those cases that you mentioned to us do not disprove the fact that blacks were the originals and whites came afterwards.
Well, I'm not disputing that.
All right.
Because from a scientific theory, it's only a theory, not proven. The creator of civilization is an African. And like I mentioned.
Hold on. I think we've gone beyond the theoretical aspect of that today, because of anthropological studies, skeletons discovered. I think they've been able to place Egypt as the cradle of civilization today.
Okay, well, I'm not disputing it. Like I said, Egypt is mentioned in the Bible, but their civilization are older than that. But they're not considered modern civilization like Egypt. Like the Bushmen of Africa, and the Aborigines of Australia. They have a longer lineage that they could trace. And for the most part, they have been living with very little Western influence, especially Bushmen. But in Australia, that's changing because it's integrated into the modern society. But you still got discrimination there. They're not treated fairly. The indigenous people, they're the people from the land, the original. Just like the original people that were here when Christopher Columbus came. And you have people that will argue and tell you they were Africans. Please give me a break. The Africans were brought here in chains. So my point, the land doesn't belong to nobody. So whoever got the power, whoever is in power, they make the rules. The golden rules, they're the golden eggs. So they make the rules, and that's why you see I don't go into that thing and classify people as black or white. I see one race, the human race, because we got mixed ancestry, but we have different histories. We have different lineage, different in culture, but I embrace all of that. This is what makes the Virgin Islands of the United States such a unique place. It's very heterogeneous. And that's why you see I focus on a constitution for all people, not zero in on a particular group and discriminate against everybody else. And even on this naturalized citizen, the fifth draft, it's against naturalized citizens. And then, some people want to play both sides of the fence. When it's convenient, they're Americans. When it's not convenient, they're not Americans. But if you look at the U.S. passport, what does it say for nationality? I think some people get confused between nationality and ethnicity and citizenship. They get it all confused. That's why the Bible has so much different interpretation, like language in the translation. Some meaning then is a different connotation today. How we use the language. When you talk about talking in tongues, I mean, I don't know, you ever heard about this rare case where somebody get a brain injury? and they become the way they after they get out of it, they start talking a different language in a different accent.
We have several. We have had several such cases.
Yes.
Yeah.
They call it savant. Savant something, but autism.
Yeah. Well,
it's a form of autism.
But it's not the same as an idiot savant. The idiot savant is a different thing.
That's a different one. Because these ones, it's basically language. Language skills. I don't know how they acquire language. They never spoke the language before. And they didn't have that knowledge of certain places before.
They did not. Hold on. They did not exhibit knowledge of those places before. It doesn't mean they didn't have it.
Okay, all right. They didn't exhibit. You're correct. You heard about, because language is a funny thing. And to me, you have to teach. I think everybody in this society should be at least bilingual, Spanish and English. Everybody should have mastery of those two languages here in the U.S. Virgin Islands. But you have to start from very early. Not wait until they go to high school to start to teach a language, a new language. It's very difficult. But there's an app now that you could translate to any language. You heard about that one? Okay, so again, going back to the Bible, I find it one of the most fascinating books to read. The Bible. You could learn a lot about nation culture and their beliefs. But some people use it to indoctrinate. And I believe that's why a lot of people have been indoctrinated to Christianity. Because to me, if you never read the Bible, never heard about Jesus Christ, like you're living on the one of the islands, the Senegalese island, off the coast of India, you are not going to have that spiritual knowledge.
I want to ask you a question. Let's just suppose that an invading group of people came to St. Croix to attack, and they're killing our people, they're rounding up some to become prisoners, slaves, what have you. But as they begin to destroy different buildings, they're destroying primarily the University of the Virgin Islands, the schools, the libraries that we have. They're not destroying the refinery, Diageo, the modes of production, but they're destroying the schools and the libraries. Why would you think they would do such a thing?
They want to erase the history, like what Trump is doing.
All right.
What he's doing, taking all them things, relevant to black people.
All right. So the reason why
to put up statues of him and monuments in his name and all that.
All right. So the reason why I brought this up is because we must not forget, we should never forget that there was a library in Alexandria that was burned down. And a lot of knowledge, a lot of information went down in that fire, in those flames. There was a reason. There was a reason why that library was burned to the ground. All right? I just want folks to know that.
Knowledge is power, and I think that we need to have spiritual knowledge as well as knowledge of the physical world and the artificial world. So I look at three forms of knowledge. Knowledge of the physical for the natural world that we did not create. Human beings didn't create that. Knowledge of the artificial world which we created. We created the buildings, the roads, the streets, libraries, museums, culture, the humanities. And in general, knowledge is power. So those people who believe in a higher power, and not one, I think people misunderstood my belief, and I'm not asking nobody to endorse it. I believe in a higher power, and my goddess is the goddess of love, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not asking somebody to endorse, follow me. Don't follow me. I don't want to be not established religion.
Mm-hmm.
I consider myself spiritual, not religious.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe in a lot of teachings in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true there's a lot of contradiction, because when it says thou shalt not kill, then another part it talks of God kills thousands of people. And then the sex trafficking in the Bible, oh my goodness. So we know that's not a recent thing. Practice, they practice from ancient times. Selling women, they try to legitimize it in the Islam religion. Basically, it's just selling a child bride for the highest bidder. Poor child, 10 years old, to become a bride. She had no choice in the matter. Her parents pick. A man could be like twice her age, 3 times, 4 times her age, and she's the bride. And you know what recently they did in Afghanistan, the Taliban? A man could beat his wife as long as he don't break her bones. Can you imagine that? You know about that, right?
Yeah, but that's not supposed to be. There are times when the Bible tells you when Christ was questioned about Moses having a writing of divorce for people, Christ said that, because of the hardness of your heart, that was permitted at that point in time. But it was never meant to have been that way, that, a couple divorces. And so we have to understand that at different periods during the development, the history of mankind, we had certain laws that were exercised, but they're not necessarily relevant today. Vanel, I've come to a point where I understand that spirituality encompasses a lot more than we seem to know. You just spoke earlier on about a person getting an accident and all of a sudden they're speaking 2 or 3 languages that they never spoke before. Consciousness, as it ties into the brain, is something that we're just beginning to get beneath the covers. In terms of who we are, who we might have been across different dimensions. That's some deep stuff that, we're just beginning to scratch the surface of these things.
I agree. Sometimes I feel like I've been here before.
All right. So
I get a feeling. This seems so familiar.
Okay.
So I get a reoccurring dream.
The deja vu experience.
Yeah.
And
so that's why I don't believe death is the end.
No, I
see a spiritual journey. So I always say praises and gratitude to my goddess of love for being present with me every step of my earthly and spiritual journey. Because I think I am on a spiritual journey, not just a physical journey, being here on earth. So I try to, sometimes I get that feeling of like a premonition, something's going to happen. Or, you could call it intuition, sixth sense, or whatever. And so I think, you can't put it in terms of the human experience. I think that's, in my opinion, it's an individual thing. Because
you say it's an individual thing. There is an individual aspect of perspective, but don't forget we are also part of a collective.
Yes.
And
that's
so
why I said establish religion.
Okay.
Religions were created. There's a beginning date. We don't know the exact date, but Judaism came before Christianity, and shortly after, it's Islam. And they all have similarities.
Yeah, but you had religions, but
monotheistic religion.
But you had religion before we got to Judaism and Christianity and Islam. We had religion before that.
Yes, I know. But it's the pharaohs.
Okay, we
had
had
the one pharaoh who came with the one God concept, but before that they had gods for this, gods for that. The Romans had different gods and goddess. The Greeks had different gods and goddess. Mythology. There was technology, now we call it religion.
Well, let me
To me, it's about the same.
let me share this with you and those who are listening. The Hindu religion is perhaps the oldest known religion in the
Which
world.
one?
The Hindu religion.
Oh, yeah?
Hinduism.
Okay.
And the Hindus, the Indians, they're the ones who wrote the Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita with all of this stuff in there. They, in their writings, speak of a war which is carried out in the heavens above by beings, higher beings, and how that had devastating consequences for the inhabitants on earth. That is echoed in the Bible, where the Bible speaks of, it says that there was war in heaven. So there is so much that we don't really, that has not been taught to us.
Connected.
Okay.
Remember, it was one land mass.
Yeah.
We talk about the old world and the new world.
Right.
The new world ain't have them kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a common theme about human sacrifice and the immaculate conception. That's a theme in those established religions.
Uh-huh.
And it's always the male, it's the God.
Yeah.
Only one.
But it doesn't mean
it does give birth.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean it doesn't
the womb is in the woman.
It doesn't mean that we should use these things to discredit Judaism or Christianity.
No.
You know, we've got to understand
you have choices.
we
have to accept it.
Yeah, but we have to understand the progression and the interconnectedness of human beings on the face of the earth. That we are all interconnected in so many ways. A lot of stuff you're hearing today about astronomy, when you go back to read about the Dogon people in Africa and the knowledge that they've had about, you know, astronomy and heavenly bodies, etc., that predates what the Egyptians have presented to us. So, so I'm saying
and the
that
number system was in my understanding. The number system was invented in India. Like 1, 2, 3, the digit.
I wasn't even aware of that. But one thing I can tell you that when we began to get into computer science, computer technology, the whole concept was based upon something called base 2 numeration. You know, which came from Egypt.
Numerology is very a big part of astrology, a big part of spiritualism. Yeah, I look for that. I look for numbers and things.
Okay.
A pattern.
And if
like I said, that is the natural world.
Okay.
That we could come up with every explanation we want.
All right.
But none of us could ever prove the beginning.
And head is here. If I were to take the teachings I got from Christianity at face value, I would discount completely astrology with the zodiac signs and all of that. But I'm going to tell you something. Based upon personal experience, I've come to know that a lot of what the zodiac presents about the different signs is true. That when you meet people, Libra people are generally of a certain characteristic approach to life. The Sagittarians have their peculiar approach, and the Pisces. I'm Pisces, so I
Pisces,
okay.
My birthday is the 28th.
Okay, and I'm the 27th.
That planet's supposed to line up on the 28th.
All right, and
I don't know what I mean.
And I'm the 27th. You know.
Okay.
So I'm saying that, you know, and then again, if you read the Bible tells you that the constellations in the heavens were given or placed there for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. So when Christians tell you, oh, you should just discount astrology altogether, that's poppycock as far as I'm concerned. You know.
But everybody got their own beliefs, and I respect everybody's religious belief or spiritual belief. That's your constitutional right to believe and practice what you want, as long as you don't infringe it on me.
True.
And
it's not even a constitutional belief or right. It's a human right. It's a basic human right.
Yes, it's a basic human right. You're absolutely correct. But you know, like I met this lady, a Black American.
Okay. Go ahead quickly because I've got somebody. Go ahead quickly. I've got people trying to come in.
She claims to be a descendant of Alexander Hamilton. And I've heard that. You know, he was considered white. By word, Alexander Hamilton's mother was not classified as white. She was colored.
Okay.
You heard that before?
No, this is the first time. That's the first time I'm hearing that.
No, I've heard it.
Okay.
So when we're talking about white and black and all that, I'm telling you, we just are one. Okay, one human race, let's love each other, respect each other. Thank you.
All right, be blessed. Bye. All right. Let's see. Did I accidentally cut off the other person? All right. The lines are open. 773-0390, 773-0490. Caller, you can come back online if you so desire. You know, knowledge is power. And I have decided to be a lifelong learner. So when it comes to the quest for knowledge, the pursuit of knowledge, I don't stop. I'm going to keep on pursuing knowledge until the day that my number is called. Hello, caller. Good morning and welcome.
Hello.
Hello. Good morning. Welcome to the program.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Astrology. It doesn't seem likely. The stars are so far away from us. How would they affect us? It seems, if anything, the moon would phase of the moon. You know where the moon was when you were born. You may have had stuff, or while you're in the womb, may have something. But it seems more likely that it's more connected to when you go to school. The age that you were and how old you were when you entered school. They find that is linked to athletes. Most of the really good athletes were born in like January, February, and that kind of stuff. And what they say is that you are the oldest in your class. Because the cutoff date is like end of October, November. And so those people would be older. So therefore they will be more agile. Their coordination will be greater than the younger kids because they're older. And then they find that the coaches are likely to pay more attention to them because they would get more. You know, they deal with the younger kids, put in a lot of time and don't get much out of them. But these older kids are more coordinated, so what they do with them, they get more. So they would more than likely get more attention from coaches than the younger kids. Therefore, enhancing their athletic ability compared to the younger kids. And so I think you might get a similar thing, depending on where you were born, deciding what kind of a treatment you are likely to get. How people are going will respond to you would be greatly influenced by the time of year that you were born. And even if you didn't take school into account, agricultural based, the time of harvesting, Christmas, the time of celebration. So what people would be doing, how they would be feeling while you were young would vary depending on the time of year that you were born. So I think that's where you see the similarities. What I'll be convinced that it's the stars and stuff. If you go to a culture that is totally different than the European culture, and I'm not talking about China because they're not. I'm talking about some village in South America where they don't interact with the outside world, so they're not influenced by the other cultures. And if you find that a Pisces, somebody born, or astrology as a Pisces, behaves the same way. Where you have now taken out the societal influences, and you're just left with where the stars were when they were born.
I'm not going to exclude or discount societal influences because, of course, to a large extent, we are molded by the environment in which we were born and in which we grow and develop. But let's be realistic about it. The moon and the sun are both part of the zodiacal framework that we're looking at. And it
But they
is.
don't really use the moon that much. They use the alignments of the stars when, for the different, and that's why I said it. If you were based it on the moon, I would, I would say, okay, you have there's possibility because the gravitational pull of the moon varies, throughout the year based on where the moon is located and how far away it is from the Earth. So I could say, yeah, I could see the moon influencing a person's personality based on where it was during the time that they were in the mother's womb. But the stars, which is what they base it on, I don't too far away to have gravitational effects. So I'm like, how would they affect the child?
Well, let me again.
So I said, I could something based on the moon. I could say, okay, yeah, you could possibly convince me, of that. But convince me that the star alignment, that I would need a whole lot of data to be convinced of that. I said if they're too far away, and then one is going to be pulling you one way, the other one's going to be pulling you the next. I don't see how I could give you a net result.
Well,
the moon is, that's the closest one. Nothing is, and then also, what about the planets? The planets are closer to us than these stars. So, yeah.
But the planets are also factored in when you're looking at astrology. It's not just the stars, but the planets are also taken into consideration. And then I listened to a scientist who did some studies in terms of quantum entanglement and magic and how these things work. And man, his presentation was so profound, where he speaks about
quantum entanglement and I didn't catch and what?
In terms of quantum entanglement and magic.
Magic.
Yeah, he's a scientist, but he has studied magicians and how often they're successful. He also mentions the times when they're not successful, but he goes on to speaking about consciousness and how what we hold in the conscious mind impacts the reality out there. And he tells you how all of this is perceived to be on a 0 point as in the quantum field of reality. I mean, it's some deep stuff he presents. And this guy is a scientist. But after doing his studies, he tells you, man, these things work. And he tells you that it doesn't work all the time. But the point of the matter is that it works some of the time.
Yeah.
And so when we're actually moving into a period of time in our history and development, when I myself, my brother, I was taught to just have a linear way of thinking. It's just this way and no other way. And now I am beginning to question a lot of what I was taught. I'm beginning to rethink things. I am saying, man, listen, it's like I'm becoming woke. To put it,
bluntly, certain things in science and actually science on a whole that doesn't change.
Yeah.
It bend or they've added in pieces, but it doesn't undo what was already known. So knowing about gravity is still the same thing. Now they may eventually find an extra piece that they didn't have that thing, but it doesn't undo the stuff that so like quantum mechanics and stuff has changed things in physics a bit, but it doesn't undo. Special relativity also has changed something, but it doesn't undo the other. The other stuff still stands. It's just that this is a special case. If you're traveling close to the speed of light, then this happens. But if you're not traveling close to the speed of light, which is the normal speed that we do, then the stuff that was there, it still remains. So they haven't undone. The new stuff that they discovered doesn't undo the stuff they already knew, like gravity.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question.
You have special cases where now, okay, with this type of a situation, the rules change a bit. But if you're not in this special case, the rules are, which is the normal stuff that everybody's listening, the rules are as is. Quantum mechanics and with all this quantum entanglement and that sort of stuff, it's usually like if you have small particles and not a bunch of particles. But if you have like a regular case, like if you have a baseball, that's billions of particles in there, and you won't see the quantum effects.
So let me ask you.
The effects that you see are what we already know about baseball.
Well, we don't. Well, we do not have all of the knowledge that's available. We know in part, at least for the time being. We're still discovering, and sometimes as we discover new things, we find out that what we thought we knew in the past is no longer relevant. So let me ask you.
No, that doesn't. I don't know that to have ever happened in physics. The stuff that we knew of the past in physics has still, from Newton on up, it's still relevant. It just may not have been complete, but it's not. But and this comes from observation. So people observed what they observed. That doesn't change. You do the same thing again, and you get the same observations. Now, maybe the explanation for those observations may be refined, maybe updated, but it doesn't. The observations don't go away. You still, if you observe, if you do that same experiment, you would see the same observations that those people saw in the past.
Let me ask you a question.
So it's not. The science does not change. It just might get more complete.
Okay, let me ask you a question here. We understand that scientists are saying to us today that they can detect the sound, the initial sound of the Big Bang, which means that it did not dissipate, it continues to travel because it is energetic. Now, when you and we also know that even in terms of light, when light which was emitted, say, for example, billions of years ago, it has taken billions of years for that light to reach us. But it was emitted billions of years ago. So I'm asking you now, when you and we speak, the words that we speak, what happened to those words?
Well, it says, again, as physics tells, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It's only transferred or transformed from one type of energy to the other. So sound is the energy. So that energy will always exist. It just may change what type. It may go from sound to, I don't know, heat, temperature, but it will always exist.
All right, so the words...
And in fact, the energy that we use to create the sound has always existed.
Okay, so
basically all the energy that's in the universe that was there at the beginning of the universe, the Big Bang, that energy is still there.
Interesting.
And will always be there. It just will change or transfer from one object to the other, or from one type of energy to the other type.
I love it. I wish that we had more time to delve into it, because you see, it's a lot of things that we take for granted. And as I mentioned earlier on, I am in a constant quest for knowledge, and I'll continue to do so until the day that I die. I'm coming to find out so much about.
Even on the day you die, if you're teaching it, you will learn something new.
Absolutely.
People, I'll probably be on my deathbed, and the last thing I will be saying is, "Oh, because I just learned something new just before I die."
Well, here is
there's more knowledge there than we have time to gather in a lifetime.
Well, here is the interesting observation I've made. Christianity taught me that I am mortal and I will die, and if such and such, then I will be resurrected. Christianity did not teach me of a transition or translation from this life in an energetic format to a next life. Now I've come to know that, I do have an energetic or an energy body, if I may put it that way, and that when that physical stays behind, that energy, that consciousness part of me moves on. And no one can convince me that this is not the case. I have no...
Well, they have found that mass is a form of energy. So your body is a form of energy. What you have made up is a form of energy, which means it has always existed and will always exist, but not necessarily in the form of mass.
Granted.
But when you die, your body will transform into some other type of energy or transfer to something else. So like the worms that eat us, we'll get some of our energy. And I suspect that our soul is also a form of energy, and that's what returns to God. And it was always there, was a part of God. So when we were born, God gave us a piece of his energy in terms of our soul. And when we die, it's likely to return. And I say that that's what heaven is. That if your soul returns to God, and now you're part of God once more, that's heaven. But hell is if it doesn't. If it goes somewhere else, and you're part, in fact, it may just go to the universe, and that might be what hell is about. Of course, we won't find out till when we die, but I have a strong suspicion based on what we know in terms of science and the universe, and all of what mankind understands about the universe. I kind of see that, and then that God created the universe, so it seems like there will be some comparison between him and, like with artists, usually a part of them goes into the artwork, and so I suspect part of God went into the universe in terms of what he thought makes sense when he was making the universe. And so in any case, I suspect that, that's my belief, that looking at science and all that, it kind of points to that, that our soul will return to God and being a part of God, and that's where heaven, you understand things, you see things, you experience things that you wouldn't as a human. We wouldn't experience the creation of a new star or the death of a star. Creation of a planet.
Yeah, because these things are part of a physical dimension and not a spiritual dimension. I generally think that when we look at heaven and hell, these are not physical destinations, but rather spiritual destinations. That's my take.
Right.
And so.
Right. But at the same time, part of it's good. Again, the energy is neither created or destroyed. So the energy that has made us, that we has always existed from the beginning of time and will always exist today until way after we have died.
Right. Yeah. But anyway, my time is fast spent.
That's one of those things that's real solid science and physics. And the only time that rule can be broken is if the interaction happens in extremely short period of time.
Right.
And so, which is not the interaction we have, on a daily basis.
All right. I gotta hold you there. My time is far gone. I gotta go. Thanks for calling.
Oh wow, sorry about
Yeah. Thanks for calling and sharing with us. Appreciate it. All right. Bye.
You're welcome.
All right. Okay, folks, until the next time when we reconnect, you stay safe, be blessed, give thanks and praises unto the Creator Most High, and we'll reconnect at the appropriate time, God willing. Bye.